Hello, my name's Franz. Welcome to MyBoxingCoach.com. What to do when rocked, when wobbled, when nigh on cleaned out with a headshot. This video started off with coming up with some practical steps on how to help in that situation, but then it went off into a tangent, but really, I guess, quite an obvious path of conversation. I'm sure you're going to get something really helpful and useful out of this. I hope so anyway. Before we start, why don't you go and download your book, The Beginner Boxer Toolkit, absolutely free. There's a link down below and there will be a link at the end of the video. 64 pages packed full of all of the information and insights you need to really get your boxing journey started, be that for fitness or be that for competition. Okay, what to do when you get a big headshot, the kind of headshots that really sort of rocks you to your feet. I remember this happening. In fact, I remember this happening to me about there. It's many years ago when I must have been about 17 or 18. I was in a spar in this gym with one of my gym mates, both good kids. I was a young England boxer at the time, so I was, you know, I could handle myself. He was a national champion, so good quality spar. And then as I backed him to the ropes, Kevin, his name was, as I backed Kevin to the ropes, I got absolutely banged with some, I don't even know what the punch was. He was a tough, hard-hitting southpaw. And everything went white. Absolutely bright white. And luckily, Kevin was back to the ropes. I managed to sort of go close to Kevin. And gradually my vision returned. I remember it returning from the outside, the peripheral vision, back to the centre, and then felt like an eternity. It was probably no more than 2 to 4 seconds that I was in that position, but that kind of shot, and that was clearly a concussion. There's no other way about it. And you know, it really So what do we do when that happens? You know, the other times I've had it is when I've really been, I don't remember headshots in fights, but I remember getting buttered, the heads, clash of heads, and that had the same effect, similar effect. So what do we do in that situation? Okay, well, this is really quite simple. Depends on where it happens. If you're at close range, if you are in physical contact with the opponent, then get your head on their shoulder. All right? If you get your head, if you think you're boxing with me, if you can get your head on either on that shoulder or that shoulder, and don't grab on tight, but just hold enough to let, you know, to give yourself that breathing space, to give yourself that time. If you grab too hard, the opponent's going to know that there's something not right with you. Right? The big art of this is to act like you've not been hurt. That's you know, that deception is a key part of this. And the great thing about the being on the ropes, if they're on the ropes, then you know they can't back away. Right? They can only go that way or that way, and you can kind of keep them there. And the longer you can keep that position until your head clears, the better. If you're in mid-ring and you're at close range, that's a bit different because they can back away. So it's really important to keep the deception going then. So again, try and get your head on the shoulders, on either of the shoulder, and try and just keep them there without really holding on too tight, because they'll know they've landed a good shot. The key thing is that they're going to want to see what's going on in your eyes, and you know, if you can avoid them even seeing your face, it's a positive thing. You know, often that shot can land on the way in, and then you go close. So ropes versus mid-ring. If you're at long range, well, it's a different kind of problem. If you're at long range and you get rocked, don't, whatever you do, go running towards the opponent trying to grab them. You're just going to get yourself absolutely cleaned out, finished, end of fight. So get the hands high, watch, observe. Don't try and be too mobile, because if your equilibrium's gone, the last thing you want to be doing is trying to do the river dance all around the ring, you know. Hold the feet. Be sort of steady, provide a threat, Don't say, you know, right, I'm like a gazelle on the African plains, just waiting to get finished off by that big cat. Show threat. Don't try and cover ground. Don't try and run. Keep an eye on what's happening. And obviously, if shots start coming, you can be blockable. Get them hands up, hold the feet. Just don't go rushing at them. But you know what? You know, in practical terms, that's how to deal with it. That could be a really short video, this. But it's really academic, certainly in the amateur boxing game. Because if you get wobbled in an amateur boxing ring, like properly wobbled, woo, the referee will stop, administer a count. You know, 9 times out of 10, that referee is going to stop that fight instantly, even at the top level. Look, the impact of long-term, what we'd call minor concussions, where you haven't been knocked out totally, the detrimental impact of long-term concussions, all of the medical evidence is really building up to say that it's really, really not good, right? It's the same in here in this ring. If I'm running a spar in that ring and I see one of them kids one of them boxers get really pinged and hit hard, I'm entirely likely to stop the spar, especially if I've seen any kind of wobble. Stop the spar, that's it, that's you done for the night. Come down, sit down here, we do a concussion check. And just like on fight night, if a referee stops it, you have to see a doctor after every single fight now. Every single amateur boxing fight, we have to take the boxer to see a doctor at ringside to get checked over, concussion check, all that stuff. Same thing would happen in here. And if I've got any doubts, any concerns, it's off to the hospital. In 30 years' time, we want to be able to tie our own shoelaces, to feed ourselves, to recognise our kids, our own kids. So don't take this for, you know, granted, right? Don't be macho. This is really an important subject. I actually think that most pros who end up with what it's called pugilistic dementia, you know, dementia brought on by excessive head blows. I actually think most of those guys didn't get their damage in fights, they got their damage in sparring. You know, sparring over and over again. So I think we have to really manage the number of concussions that are caused in a place like this, or any boxing environment. And that starts with people like me, it starts with the coach. It's really easy to be brave when someone else is taking the shot. You only have to go round and look at any opinion site on the internet, how many non-boxing people will tell anyone who'll sit still long enough to read their post that if they were this boxer, they'd have done this, or that boxer's no good because he did. Everyone's dead brave when it's other people taking the headshots. So, 5 ways of managing that whole taking blows and minimising the risk of concussions. Number 1, just keep the heavy spars to a minimum. You know, open spars, 3 types of sparring. There's a link up above on my video on the 3 sparring types. Tech sparring, technical sparring, where you're just there, you don't even need gum shields, you're just there to work on technical solutions with each other. Conditioned sparring, right, you are able to only throw jabs in this round. That's an example of a conditioned spar. Headgear, mouth guard. Open spar is when it's more like a competitive match. But, you know, I personally think 1 spar a week max is enough for our boxers, really. And I think a lot of other coaches are of the same type of mindset. Reduce the number of head blows by reducing the number of spars. Second is about control and culture. Have a culture of safety, have a culture of everyone being aware that we're trying to minimise the number of headshots. And that's for both boxer and coach almost, you know. It's like talking about mental health. Years ago, it may have been seen as not very, I hate the phrase, not a very manly thing to do. Now, thankfully, thank God, we're all encouraged to talk about our mental health. It's part of our being. It's no different than if we've got a physical illness. And there's no harm in if you've took a heavy shot in sparring, you know, have that word and say, oh, I took a big one there, coach. That made me see stars, you know. Shall I sit out now? What do you think? There's nothing wrong with that. I would be proud of one of my boxers if they came to me and said that. Likewise, you know, just keep that thing in mind. Don't let anyone else be brave on your behalf. If you're involved in boxing, believe me, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for you to demonstrate your courage and you know, pushing through pain barriers. Don't make a habit of it. Don't make it week in, week out. It's no good. So control and culture. Equipment, good gloves, good head guard. We had a kid who came with, this years ago, he'd imported a pair of Clayto Reyes from America. Brought them in, 14-ounce gloves. Looked at them and all of the padding was up, all of the weight of the glove was along this arm. Front end was like that. So we'll let you wear them once. We wore them once. They became the most expensive pair of bag gloves ever to come in this gym. You know, just inappropriate for sparring, just breaking opponents' sparring partners' faces apart. You know, concussion heaven. So all of the padding needs to be up here. All of the weight of the glove needs to be up here. Reduce the risk of heavy head blow. So good quality equipment. The joy of defence. Some of the finest, most memorable moments I had in competition boxing was when I made someone miss, and that feeling of making them miss. So really get into that, the enjoyment of that. You know, enjoy making people miss. Enjoy, just not all about landing the punch. Enjoy the art of defence, of making people miss. It's fantastic when it comes off. It's great for everyone to see. That's what people love to see in boxing. Like they like a slugfest every now and again, but true boxing people, they love to see that defensive land, you know, the art of hit and not be hit. And the final one, and I kind of overlooked this one. I knew as a kid, even years ago, when you dehydrate, there's a fluid around your brain that helps protect your brain. And when you're dehydrated, your body takes fluids from there as reserves and absorbs them. And of course, if you're going to take headshots, you want as much, you know, fluids. And that's why I think, you know, when fighters have catastrophic brain injuries towards the end of a fight, after a long period of training with dehydration and a long, tough fight, big part of it is that dehydration piece. And I got this off Box Positive, which is a YouTube channel. I'll put a link up there, run by a young man called Charles Delve. And I just tripped over it last night, actually, when I was, night before, when I was preparing for this video. Final preparations. So yes, hydration, drink well, you know, keep your fluid intake. If you know you're going to be sparring on a Wednesday, make sure you're well hydrated. Be hydrated all the time. We all know how good it is. Be hydrated all the time. So there's the 5 things to help you minimise the risk of concussions. God, I talked quite a lot then. I do apologise. If you're still here, well done. Don't forget, download your book, The Beginner Boxer Toolkit, link there. Look after what's up here. It's got to last you your whole life. Don't be casual when it comes to minimising concussions and, you know, dealing with headshots.